Are going live. Okay, we're live. Good evening, guys. Welcome to I Want to Believe Chat Show. And this week I am with Chatty Cathy and the lovely Lynda. How you been, ladies?
Good. It's nice to be back. We were away the last week, and it's lovely to be here again.
Yeah,
good to see your beautiful faces.
Thank you. No, I had to pull the plug last week because of the fires up here in the sweltering heat. It got to the point where it was pretty much in my backyard. So the anxiety kicked in, and there's other things going on in my life at the moment as well. I was just like, I just need to back away a couple of days and just get on with my life, kind of thing, and just regroup and that kind of thing. But no, I'm back anyway. It's glad to be back. I took a couple of weeks off because I was off previously as well with work and stuff like that. So it's nice to get back in, and I'm now in my new office. So that lovely green color. But anyway, that's a story itself. It was I was walking around the site at work, and there was they were painting one of the rooms like a certain color green, and I went up to the guy that was painting the walls, like, well, what color is it? And he said that it's lime green. So I was like, okay. So I took that, and I went to Home Depot, and I said, yeah, I need it in lime green, but I didn't realize that different manufacturers have different tones of color. So I painted my walls like I did like 3 walls in my basement this color, and the first coat was fine. And then the next day I come down, and I was still trying to fix the lights up and stuff like that. Did another coat, left it a couple of days. And then I came down, and it still had that sheen to the wall. It's like, oh my God, my eyes! Oh, it was like ammonia in my eyes, like tears rolling down my eyes. It was that bright, and it was just like I have to put something over the front of it. And then my father-in-law painted something over the front of it just to tone it down a bit. But it was just like you'd be down in more than like a minute. And I was fixing like the cabinets on the side here and stuff like that. And honestly, my head was just like pounded because it was so bright with my eyes and stuff like that. So I think the next project is probably to paint it a different color.
Well, here's the good thing, Peter. My son had that color when he was 4 on his walls. So there you go. It's quite popular
for Cathy. This color's toned down quite significantly. Like the original color was like almost like a luminous yellow, luminous green color. So it like pierced your eyes. Like I'm good with light stuff like that, but with the LED lights I've got down here at the moment, it's just like, oh my God! And like you within like a minute, you get a pounding headache and stuff like that. So anyhow,
how are you, Lynda?
I'm doing okay. I broke my toe 3 weeks ago, and 3 ago, and it's not getting better.
That's not good. I'm sorry to hear that.
No. And I'm going to a wedding in August, so I want to wear my heels. So I'm willing my toe to get better. So aside from that, everything's okay.
Fantastic. Okay, this week's guest, I guess that we should bring him on. Sorry, I apologize. This week's guest is a buddy of mine from the Beyond the Fray publishing. He's also published a book under the same color. His name is Kenney Irish, and let's bring him onto the show so he can tell us all a little bit about himself. Hi, Kenney. How are you, buddy?
Hey, Pete. How are you, my friend?
Good, mate. Good. Welcome to the show. And
thank you.
So, would you like to start from the beginning? Just tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, certainly. Like you said, my name is Kenney W. Irish. I currently live in upstate New York, originally from the northern area of Vermont. I've just had a lifelong love for monsters and creatures and anything mystery and anything that just, keeps me wondering and I don't know, it just drives me and keeps me going. And I love to write and meet people. And as Pete said, my most recent publication was released through Beyond the Fray Publishing, American Cryptids, in pursuit of the elusive creatures. And so I'm here to just hang out with everybody, get to know the folks here and anybody who's watching.
Good stuff. So where did your passion start? How did it start in cryptology?
I was about 4 years old, and just this little goofy looking kid, just totally completely in love with anything creepy, like King Kong and Godzilla. And somebody had mentioned to me about, because I was living in Vermont at the time, and I lived near Lake Champlain, and they'd mentioned Champ, the Lake Champlain monster, to me. And for a 4-year-old, understanding that there's potentially a Godzilla-like creature living in that lake, that just like set me just on this crazy path of nonsense, I guess, in a way. I just fell in love with it, and the more I looked into everything, and just the mystery behind it, and just kind of meeting people, pretty much, from the age 4 up, because everybody, when they were 4, all the kids love monsters. And as you got a little bit older, it kind of dwindled about who would admit that they did. And I still pretty much, for the most part, all through my years, still said, yeah, I love monsters. So that's pretty much, kind of how it all started and began. And watching cartoons and watching some of the old, like Frankenstein movies, and again, the Godzilla movies. And then that conversation when somebody just kind of blurted it out and said, hey, have you seen Champ the monster? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And again, since I was like 4 years old, I've just been hooked, and I've just been hanging in there, and just pretty much just chasing legends since then.
So, okay, here's a question for you. So was there a time when you were watching these cartoons and stuff, being a youngster, where you just sort of went beyond that? Like, and how I mean is, like, for us that are ghost hunters, I suppose, people talk about ghost stories, and we always have that, yeah, but we know that they exist. We know that they're out there. We have, either certain senses or just experiences or whatever that we want to follow and we're fascinated with. Was that what it was like for you? Like, you're looking at some of these things and you go, I just know that they're there.
Yeah, it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And then again, just having that conversation with that one person saying, oh yeah, by the way, they do exist. Because, right. Anytime I brought up any type of like creature or monster, it's like my mom was like, no, they don't exist. Don't worry about it. It's just make believe, it's fun. And, and it's just so I just wanted to stay in my head with what I thought was fun and fantastic. So, but again, when I heard that there was a monster in the lake near me, that just changed everything, because for me it was like, okay, so for the longest time, what I wanted to be real, somebody has now said it was real. And even though after that I still had people say no, it's not real, this and that, they couldn't change my mind after that. It was done and over with. And I remember just bringing it up to people, and many people knowing the legend of Champ, and claiming that they know people that have witnessed them. And so just over the years, running into people like that, and it just got to a point where I just held on to it. And if somebody came to me right now, if the government came out and said, all right, by the way, there's no such thing as Champ, it's going to be still hard to kind of change my mind, even at this point. Because there's too many people I know that are incredibly just credible people that when they say something to me, like I know that they're not lying, because they're also the first person to look at a picture of something and be able to say, no, that's not real, this is what this is. So if they're actually saying to me, hey, yes, this, for me, that really kind of takes that to that next level.
Have you seen him?
I haven't, man. I tell you, it's funny because, a lot of people have asked me, have you seen any cryptids? And I'm like, no, I've had experiences, but, and I say this over and over again, I am that guy that is late to the party every single time. It's just like, it's like, I show up, to the party, and they're like, oh my God, you just missed this incredible fight, and I'm like, really? And it's same thing with cryptids. I get there after everything happened, and so I'm just, even when I'm on time, I'm somehow late. So
That's pretty much the same when we're ghost hunting as well. It's always the camera's either pointing in the wrong direction, or you've missed it, or you packed your equipment up and you've walked out the door, kind of thing. And you just you're heading out, and then something unbelievable happens. That's always the way, kind of thing. So when you started like a fascination when you were a child and stuff like that, what point did that you reading books, reading stories and stuff like that, what happened to that transition for you to become the investigator and the author to what you are today, kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess right around when I got into high school, I mean, I always wrote, and I used to like to draw a lot when I was younger. And when I got into high school, the first couple of years, I just kind of put it on the back burner because I was still like reading about monsters, still loving them, but I was still kind of trying to find myself, and I still haven't found myself. Just a disclaimer, going to throw that out there right now. But I guess it was kind of like right around my senior year was when I kind of got pulled right back into writing, and I took a class that played different like horror movies, and we ended up having like a session that talked about Sasquatch and different cryptids, and that just kind of pulled me back in there. And I love music. I love playing music as well. I grew up listening to like Motown because of my parents, and I fell in love with a band called Tommy James and the Shondells. I still, to this day, they're my number one favorite band. And then one of my friends ended up coming to school. I was probably, I don't know, maybe in 6th or 7th grade, and he handed me this cassette tape, and it was just like a mixtape. It had like no label on it, and I'm like, "What is this?" He's like, "Man, I took this from my brother. You got to check this out, and you got to listen to this." So took it, brought it home, and popped it in, and my head just exploded. I'm like, I didn't know I didn't know this music existed. I mean, it had the Dead Kennedys on it, it had the Misfits on it. It was just this like nonstop of just complete awesomeness. And so I really got into playing music as well. And I wanted to play the drums, but I ended up getting a guitar for Christmas. So I kind of, not to knock it, but I was like, okay, well that's what I got. And so I kind of learned how to play it. I've been playing for many years, but I still say kind of learned because I still, in my opinion, not that great. But so I don't know. For me, it was just kind of like, the thought of like, like monsters and heavy music. To me, it was just exciting, just kind of having them, together at the same time, and just loving both of them. And just the passions. So I played in a bunch of hardcore punk bands for a long time. We put out some albums. We played on the radio, and music business is a vampire, so I kind of spiraled out of control with it, and ended up quitting the stages, and just really got back into like writing, not music, and just just going back into the imagination area. And I wrote my first publication that released back in 2014. It was a young reader's chapter book. It was like a Halloween book, and and so but I wanted to also add something cryptid into it, and wasn't really able to pull it together with the plot of the story. But the next one was a book that released back in 2020 through Dark Moon Press Publishing called Stanley Riker and the Bigfoot Runaround. So it's, I'd say probably right around 2014 was when I kind of started diving back into writing and, in that direction. But I mean, I always loved in research, folklore, the Native American lore. That's really where I do a lot of my research. And just again, just monsters, creatures in general.
Well, what fascinates you the most about cryptids? I mean, is it their elusive nature? What is it that really fascinates you the most? What grips you the most?
The mystery and the not knowing, the not being able to actually it just the legends, just anything legend based. And like I said, I do my research kind of based off of the Native Americans. So, where a lot of people start with, let's say, the Patterson-Gimlin footage, and they start researching forward. I started that. And I actually went backwards because I wanted to know where it all came about. For a lot of people, Patterson-Gimlin, that video is like, that's the only thing they know. That's their starting point. And, for me, I like to go back. I want the rawest of rawest information. I want the furthest back because, every legend has some ounce of truth to it, even if it gets to a point where it's so blown up and you could barely find or even sense truth in it. Every legend in mystery has some ounce of truth to it. So for me, I really want to know the truth. I want to know where it started, how it started. I go back, 100 years. I go back 150 years, and just try to research that. And when we speak of like Sasquatch nowadays, talk about them being really elusive. But when you go back and you look at what the Native Americans said, some tribes, claim that they lived with them in harmony, that they worked together, while others, didn't have that good of a relationship with them, where they actually, would come into their villages at night and take their women and their children and different unfortunate situations like that. But you go back and you look at all these different stories and situations that happened, and then you look at like today, like I don't even like what kind of the world sees as like Sasquatch now is so different compared to what it was originally talked about and brought forward. When you bring up Sasquatch, a lot of people think Jack Links. They think of the Sasquatch pizza. They think of a lot of things like that. They think of the show like Finding Bigfoot. That's what they see, and that is what they consider their, I guess, research from what today is, not where it actually originally came from. So to me, and this is just my opinion, I think that's kind of reckless. I personally, and that's not a knock on Finding Bigfoot. I actually love the show Finding Bigfoot. I think it's phenomenal. I was actually supposed to be at a conference in May speaking at that with Cliff Barackman. So again, I love Finding Bigfoot, but it just, again, a lot of people are looking at different TV shows, and that's kind of where they're getting their research from. But there's so much more to it. There's so much more to the story. There's so much more to, the story than, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, riding on a couple horses, and, they're saying that this was Patty. There's so much more than, somebody saying, yes, that was a man in a suit. There's just so much more to it. When you go back, there's like barely any controversy, like this is what it was. Nowadays, it's just, again, it's reckless because it's a subject that has zero accountability, kind of like the paranormal field. There's really a zero accountability. And so some people can really get reckless with it and just kind of go crazy with it. And, and me personally, I'm a data guy. I'm a guy who also wants to speak some logic to where, if something happens, like I want to know if there was an explanation for it before I say, okay, this is paranormal or this was a cryptid. Like, I can't say how many times myself and the team that I'm with, we go out into the woods and we come back and people are like, what'd you get? What'd you find? We're like, nothing, absolutely nothing.
Right. And
even though we may have come across something, we were able to maybe logically kind of explain it away, or if we can't explain it away or put something with it that actually could explain it, we don't even bring it up. If it's something that we can't explain and we can't actually put our finger on it and come up with an explanation, then we'll say, well, we came across this. We're not saying it's Sasquatch related. We're not saying it's cryptid related. We're not saying it's paranormal, but we came across this and we can't necessarily explain it. This is what we saw. This is what happened. So, I was going somewhere with this. I do this all the time.
No, I get what you're saying. It's like we filmed an episode of the show, the We Want to Believe show with Jason, a few months. Well, no, actually last year. just up here in Kamloops, and we went out with Chris Boyce. He's a part of our team. He's from the local Indian band up here, and it was amazing to hear their interpretation on what Bigfoot is, and it's not like this, like they know he exists. It's a thing, and they have their own, they have their own that mindset that they're, that Bigfoot's a shapeshifter and it can appear and disappear and stuff like that, kind of like a mystical character, and they don't, they wholeheartedly believe it's there, and and it's acceptance in their culture as well. Like in relation to what I understand what you're saying where you were going earlier with where our interpretation is now, because like us, and I'm not, putting a racial card up or anything, but us white people, it's not a part of our culture or anything like that. We've, suddenly you've got up one day and you suddenly wanted to research it and stuff like that. And we then, the beginning people, the beginners that have got into the field just have that interpretation of, they just want to go out and see it without having a kind of an understanding of what different cultures are and stuff like that. But what's interesting, what you said about when you're going out looking for it as well, it's kind of the same as when we go out ghost hunting as well. And I hate using the word ghost hunting, but we're all paranormal investigators. But when we're going out for ghost hunting as well, we're looking for something that we don't know how to find it. That makes sense. And it's the same kind of thing as what you do as well. Like we've got all the equipment and stuff like that, but we don't know how to capture a picture of a ghost, or we don't know how to see a ghost. That's, and that's what we're doing. And we're all theories and stuff like that. And it's just, for people to dismiss things like Bigfoot, you might as well dismiss things like UFOs and ghosts and stuff like that as well, because it's all part of the same, it's all part of the same nucleus in that respect as well. That's what I think.
I agree. 100%. 100%.
What is it? What is I think there's some feedback. What would be the cryptoid that if you had the ability to encounter, what would you like to see? Yeah. Like if you had the choice of any, and it was just suddenly there, what would it be that you would like to have that, I guess that proof of, I suppose, for you, like that definitive proof? Right.
I guess are you asking like what proof I would like to see, or what cryptid I would?
Which cryptid?
Oh, it would definitely be number one would definitely be Champ. And number two would definitely be a Sasquatch, without a doubt. And after that, whatever pops up, this certain being falls under spirit, but also falls under cryptid. It depends on who you talk to. The one I don't want to see is a Wendigo. So, so I'm just putting that out there. So just letting it be known.
Or even a chupacabra. I think that would be a little bit scary on
the
road.
It could be. It could be. I mean, if I'm in a car, I'm all right. But if I'm walking,
I don't know. I don't know how fast they run. So I mean, as long as you're pressing that pedal to the metal, I think you're probably good. But
as long as it doesn't follow me home.
Right.
We don't need that. We don't want that.
No.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because every culture has their form of a cryptoid, and in all over the world, they're very, very similar.
Yes.
So, and then this goes back way before, just us being in Canada or anything. I mean, these legends have been around since the dawn of man, really, in every culture has them. So
exactly. And that's what I was saying before, where it's just like, it's just like when I research and I look back, I just like to go way back, and you just, there's so much that you can learn, and so much that you can, that you can kind of bring forth to what you're doing. And, the other thing too is, I mean, the team that I'm with, when we go out, I mean, we do a lot of the stuff, that, a lot of people do tree knocks and stuff, but for the most part, we try to leave the Hollywood, if you will, in the car and try to go out and just kind of be in the area, because I also think, like, I think back to the tribes people, and I mean, they didn't have cell phones in their hands, they didn't have all this stuff that was, you know, so maybe they saw more than what we're seeing now, because we're so distracted by trying to set this up and set that up that we potentially miss it. I'll tell you, when I go out, like, I don't want to be yelling. I don't want to be banging on anything. I really don't. I want to go out there. I just want to explore the woods and just, you know, even just sit there and just be quiet. And I mean, we've done some stuff that I thought was really cool. Like, you know, if Native American folks and Sasquatch, you know, did have this bond and connection, we're like, well, let's play some Native American chanting and drumming. I mean, we didn't know what they were saying, so that was kind of scary. But, you know, we went out, we brought a laptop, a speaker, and just cranked it up, and for about 45 minutes, just played it and let it loop. And I just gotta put this out there. If anybody has never done anything like that, I highly recommend you do it. It is the coolest experience, just to be sitting out there in the pitch dark with that playing. I mean, like, I walked away. I was probably maybe like 100 yards away, so I could hear it in the distance. So for me, it was like it was really actually happening. Like, it wasn't coming through like a speaker, and it was echoing, and, you know, I could see, like, it was just a phenomenal experience. But after, you know, we shut it down, and, you know, we could hear some movement in the distance. We're not saying it was a Sasquatch. We just could hear something moving. It definitely could have been a deer. It could have been a bear. It could have been something. But two of the researchers that I was with said, you know, from what they could hear, it sounded like it was walking bipedal. I personally played in band so long, I can't tell the difference. I mean, my hearing's like shot. So I could hear something, but, you know, as being able to distinguish, you know, how it's walking, I couldn't hear that. But so, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that brought something into the area. It absolutely brought something in the area, but we don't know what it actually brought into the area. So again, just trying to kind of go back to, you know, how did they do things
right
back in the day, you know? And again, I know that they weren't going in the woods and just banging on trees and yelling, you know, especially, I mean, if there's something that's elusive and is trying to stay away from you, I still to this day don't really understand the whole yelling and banging on trees. Right. We've experimented with it, and we've, you know, done different things. But, you know, and again, this is just my opinion, and I'm not knocking anybody who does it, because, like I said, I've done it. I just, I don't know, for me, I try to not be so distracted when I go in, so that way if something is happening or going on, I'm not, you know, looking at a keyboard, you know, trying to set something up, you know. Yeah. My focus is really just kind of being there, and, you know, and I'm not concerned about getting a picture or something. I'm really not. I kind of go out more for myself. I've like, there's nothing in me that wants to believe that Sasquatch exists. I want to know. I just want to know. And then after that, you know, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know. Once I find out, you know, for me, it's because, again, the mystery and the legend is what really drives me. So, you know, if it becomes as, you know, common as something like the black bear or something, I mean, you know, unfortunately, that'll be a little devastating for me, even though I'll get the answer I want. So in reality, I guess I really don't really want to know. I want to know.
I think what you were saying, though, in regard to, you know, what were they doing centuries ago, and you know, people like the Aboriginal groups in like BC and stuff like that, they lived with them, and you know, yeah. I don't think that they really went out their way to find them. The way it was described to me, it was that they lived together, and you know, they were courteous. They would leave food out from them and stuff like that, and they wouldn't go out looking for them. So it might be just that. It might be the key of finding Sasquatch or Bigfoot. It would be don't go looking for it. and you might run into it, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like we say though as well. Like it's the same with ghost hunting as well. Like we become so absorbed with technology that we kind of lose our ambitions to use our main senses, which is the primarily the focus of what we do. Is our main senses more than anything else. So no good.
We have a comment from a Facebook user. Unfortunately, because you're commenting through Facebook, I don't get your actual name, unfortunately. But I just wanted to make a comment, or just wanted to read their comment. And this is so true. This has to go with what you had just said, Kenney, goes towards something they say goes towards something I heard the other day. Perhaps the reason we never see anything in the skies is the fact that we never stop to look up. We're too distracted by everything going on around us, especially the technology we're constantly carrying in our hands. Imagine what we could see in the skies at night if we just stopped and looked up. And this is very true as to what you had just said. I mean, we're so distracted by everything else that we're not paying maybe attention to the things that, like, what is it that we could see if we just sort of stopped and started paying attention.
Yeah.
I was just trying to find out who the author was, but it hasn't come up on my phone. Okay,
Yeah.
so it'd be Facebook user.
Facebook user, please put your name down below.
Yeah. Put a signature on there. So everyone, in order for us to keep the wheel spinning, what we do in our field, there's always that kind of one moment where you might have had that one encounter, or that encounter that's kind of you've caught that big fish. So Kenney, have you ever had that kind of moment where perhaps you've come across something that you can't logically explain?
Yeah, it does happen. I guess there was, go back to like tree knocking. So the reason we were doing it that one night is because we were actually experimenting, because every time, you hear, let's say like a tree knock on somebody's recording on like a TV show, it's this solid crack sound. But yet, anytime you pick up a stick in the woods and you hit a tree, I mean, depending on the age of the tree, the outside of the tree, the stick you're hitting it with, it never sounds the same. It just never sounds the same. So we went out and we're just like, you know what? We sit more on the flesh and blood side of Sasquatch being flesh and blood. We're not 100% there, because we believe if we're 100% with something, that might also draw a line in the sand where we kind of don't want to, because we want to continue to have conversations with people in different ways of thinking and theories. But so we see them as, flesh and blood, more primate. So, we're thinking about like animal behavior. The gentleman that leads the group that I'm with, his name's Gary Robusto. He's also known as Hoot and Holla. He's been doing paranormal investigation for like 27 years and cryptid Sasquatch investigation, I'd say, for about 12 or 14 years, something around there. And his education and background is in animal behavior. So we were talking about, primates, apes, a lot of the time they're holding rocks in their hands. They're banging rocks on trees, on the ground, other rocks together. So we're like, why don't we try it out? Let's take rocks. Let's throw them at the trees. Let's take them. Let's hit the trees. Let's just hear what it sounds like. What's it going to hurt to do it? And so we went out and, we're thinking, okay, how hard can you throw a rock at a tree and actually make a sound? How hard can you actually hit it and that sound actually travel? And we found after, a lot of testing with it, that the sound traveled very far, and every single time it made that crack noise, every single time. So, for us, we're not saying, well, that's what's happening, but in our minds, we've kind of crossed a line to actually get that actual sound that, again, folks have heard on recorders. So one night we were doing that, and Gary radioed us and said, hey, you know what? I just want to, I want to give it a shot. I was probably, I don't know, maybe 500 yards away with another investigator. And so Gary, hit the tree with the rock, and we could hear it. It echoed, it made that crack noise, and it was beautiful. And we were just quiet. And like 45 seconds later, we heard a return crack noise, and we know Gary didn't do it. He was at base camp. We were about 500 yards away. We had a fire going too at base camp, so I could see Gary and our tech guys actually standing there. One of the things that we do is we do put digital recorders all through the woods just to see what we hear. And a lot of the time it's to hear if there's animals in the area, to see what the patterns are, just to know what's going on in the woods, because that can give us a lot of information of if something's there or something isn't there. And by chance, that return crack noise that we heard, actually one of our recorders actually picked it up, and it picked it up pretty well. So we looked for every way to try to debunk what we heard. We looked to see, because sometimes when you may not feel the wind where you're standing, but sometimes the wind is higher up and the trees are swaying a little bit, and that can make a crack noise. Just with it moving. There was zero wind. There was absolutely nothing. It was in the middle of summer. Again, it's like 1-2 o'clock in the morning. So it was just, everything was just dead still. So we can't explain it. We're not saying it was a Sasquatch, but we're saying that it's something that we definitely can't explain, and we heard it ourselves, and we have it on recording. So there's definitely been a lot of different experiences that we've come across that we can't explain. The night that we played the Native American chanting, after we left our research area, we've got a couple of them. After we left that one research area, we looked back, and there was a glowing light right where we were. And you would think, okay, well, it could be like some hiker, or it could be this, it could be that. There was no trail. I mean, when you go out in the woods with Gary, you walk on the trail for about 3 feet, and then he turns, and you're bushwhacking, wherever he's going. There's no trail out there. There was nothing out there. And also, if it was a hiker, if it was somebody with a flashlight, you'd see it moving around. This was just a dead light, just right in the area where we were, where we played the chanting. And whenever we moved, we could see it. The light didn't move. It just stayed there. And these are areas that, again, there are research areas. So we know it's not some type of swamp gas or anything. We know the area, we know the layout. So that was another experience that we couldn't necessarily explain. A lot of researchers in the realm of cryptids, and especially Sasquatch, actually believe that actually could be, because they believe that a Sasquatch is ghost, paranormal, interdimensional. It was manifesting itself based off of the music that we played. There's a bunch of different theories of what folks had mentioned to us.
I'm putting up my hand.
Yeah, I saw that.
Good Gail.
But so okay with what you were describing though? That would be parallel to kind of the Mothman legend too, because the Mothman has been known to, either a set of glowing red lights, or even sometimes there's been, claims of just that one red light before he appeared. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this light was just white though. I mean, it was just plain white. And it, when we left, I mean, it was still there when we left, just sitting there. And, it was just, again, one of those like crazy, situations that you can't necessarily explain. And, so it just kind of, it's, for some people, it kind of makes them want to run to it. And me, I'm the opposite. It's strange because people laugh at me. They're like, you would have no problem coming across a 7.5, 8 foot tall beast, but yeah, you're gonna turn and run from a light. Yeah, I'm gonna, because you know what, the beast doesn't want me to see him, but I know, right. Sometimes in the paranormal world, something can attack. I run. I really try not to deal with the paranormal if I don't have to. When the group starts talking about, well, we think it's this and that. I'm like, all right, well, hey, I gotta get going.
I'm getting a bit tired now. Time to go home.
Yeah.
We have this comment here. The observers were themselves being observed, which, yeah, Possibly, right? Like, maybe that's what was going on.
So Kenney, have you ever thought that there's any parallels to what you've seen in regard to that, like to UFOs as well? Because a friend of mine, Charles, I forget the new terminology for UFOologists, but there's a lot of like I spoke to him a few months ago, and he's not, he hasn't been searching for the last 30 years for flying saucers or anything like that. He's actually been searching for like orbs, like white orbs in the sky and stuff like that. And he's got incredible like evidence of things. Like if you sat him down in the room and you'd speak to him, you think he was like totally off his nut, like he was probably a whack job and stuff like that. But he's like he's so passionate about it, and the things he's caught over the years all around Vancouver and up and down BC as well. It's just like these white orbs in the sky, and he can. 1 minute they're like really small, and they're he feels that they're a few meters away in the air. Next thing they're miles away, and that's predominantly what he's been. He's been researching for the whole entire of his career, kind of thing. So, have you ever any thought on that at all?
Yeah, that was brought up by Gary that night that we were seeing the lights in the up in the Adirondacks here. Yeah, I mean it's always a possibility because again, I mean I can't explain it. I have no logical reason for it. So yeah, it's definitely been talked about. And it's funny, because sometimes, when you talk about orbs, a lot of folks, will relate orbs to, being a fairy. Some relate it to being a spirit. So, I've kind of heard many different, theories on actually what they are. So, I mean, it's again, like the paranormal is really not my realm, if you will. So I don't really look into it as much, but, a lot of folks actually, claim that. And when they talk about, seeing them in the woods, a lot of the time they're talking about that they're actually fairies. But, I mean, I don't know. It's just, all I know is it stuff like that, freaks me out, and I've seen it, and it still to this day freaks me out. But, some of the stuff that, we do, to look at results and again, to get data and understand the area that we're researching as well is important. So like, again, I had mentioned, Gary's background's animal behavior. So he puts up trail cams in our research areas, not necessarily to, get a picture of some type of creature walking through, but more, again, to see what the animals are doing, because the animals in the area, what's going on and what's not going on is really going to kind of give you some information and kind of give you some data and some patterns to kind of look at and work at. For instance, it was last spring. Last spring, Gary went out on his own, and he put Cheerios out in different areas, and different food in different areas, and put the cameras up. And 2 weeks went by. He went back out there, and none of the food was touched. I mean, none of it.
What?
And which is exactly, which was
like at least a squirrel would grab it, or
exactly. It was just all there. So obviously very strange. So we're thinking, okay, well, that's really weird. Whatever. So, a couple of weeks later we came back and all the food was gone. So, so we kind of use that as in like, well, why is that? What happened there? So, obviously we're looking for patterns. Okay. So no food's being eaten for a couple of weeks, and then it's eaten for a couple of weeks. Then no food's being eaten, So we're trying to kind of use that information to find out, well, when should we actually be there in the woods? Is there a certain pattern? So obviously, if these animals aren't coming out and eating this food that we're leaving, okay, there's obviously some type of alpha predator that's in that area that's keeping them. We're not saying it's a Bigfoot. It could be a bear. It could be many different things. But at the same time, it kind of gives us kind of direction to understand the area, what's going on, what's coming through. And obviously, if every couple of weeks this is happening, well, every couple of weeks we know when we need to be in the woods. It's after that, every time we put the food out, it was disappearing. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to find that pattern where we're able to actually work it. So obviously we know there was absolutely something in the area at that time. Again, we don't know what it is. We do know that there are all kinds of Sasquatch sightings in that area. Our research area is right outside of Whitehall, New York. So if anybody is really familiar with, Sasquatch, that's the epicenter for Bigfoot sightings on the East Coast. So we've got two different research areas in that right outside of Whitehall. And there's constant sightings. Lately, it's just been a lot of road cross sightings, not actually in the woods. Oh. So yeah, actually Gary went on and did a Facebook Live earlier today talking about that. How, there's a lot of people, they're coming across road crossings and not actually any sightings in the woods. And me personally, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, people, like last year, everything was closed. I mean, you couldn't do anything last year. So yeah. There's a lot of people I know that, did the only thing they could do was they went out in the woods, they went hiking, they did different things. They went to state parks even when they were closed. There was a lot of people that did that. There's a lot of people that fell in love with it. So you got to, if you think about it, let's just say 1 out of every 10 people started hiking because of last year. Well, there's a lot more people in the woods now. So it would probably make sense that with all these people, walking through the woods and slamming through the woods, it would, anything that was in the area, it's going to chase it into, maybe an area closer to roadways.
That's really interesting that you say that, because where I live in Georgina, we have a lot of Chippewa, and we also have, because we're so close to Toronto, we're about a little over an hour north of Toronto. It's so not affordable to live in Toronto. So up here, there's a lot of building, and they're destroying a lot of the forests, and they're destroying a lot of the native land. And we've seen a lot of sightings of what people call skinwalkers, but they're not really skinwalkers. Sure. Yeah, no, it's really kind of cool. They don't seem to be skinwalkers as much as they're kind of like a rakish figure. It's sort of on all fours. It looks like a naked person, but it's got a distorted face. And a lot of people are saying, it could very well be a skinwalker, but it's displaced because of all the building and because of all of that destroying of everything. And do you it kind of ties in with what you're saying as well, because, if there's more influx of people in those Adirondack mountains that there normally wouldn't be, then you would think that any creature of any kind would be displaced. It would start crossing the roads, and it wouldn't necessarily want to be down where other people are if it's not used to being around where other people are. So I find, there's a lot of commonalities there, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you say native land too, I mean you start taking over and digging up native land, you're going to start stirring up some stuff too, sure. and that's just my opinion, and it's funny too, because I'd mentioned the Wendigo earlier, and a lot of the descriptions, have them where they have like horns coming out of their heads, but in reality, that's really not what the Wendigo looks like. It actually kind of looks like the rake, kind of like, what you had mentioned. I mean, that's really what it looks like. So, I mean, who knows? And a lot of people actually, say Wendigos, even though it's based off of cannibalism, are also skinwalkers. Some people put them in the same category. So, who knows until we 100% have, documented facts on it. Who knows? I mean, it very well could could be a skinwalker. You know, a lot of people see, like, shapeshifters. They say, oh, those are skinwalkers too. But shapeshifting is kind of different, from what I've researched. Like, shapeshifting is like a man turning into a werewolf. That's kind of, how I've always researched, and that's what I've gotten back. But skinwalkers, I mean, it's, some people say, they were Native American people of the tribes that were witches that did certain things that they weren't supposed to, and now they're doomed to walk the earth. So there's all kinds of different lore and mystery behind all of it. And I'm just going to go back to what I said before. That's what keeps me going, because it's so fun to just read about all these different stories and theories, and how they came to be what they are today.
I know. So when you were talking about Champ specifically, I remember as a child going to Lake Champlain a lot, and also going to Lake Memphremagog in Quebec as well. And they have their own little Champ creature. I think it's called Memphrey, I think. Yeah. And it's really interesting, because when you look throughout the history, and I think that's what you were trying to say at the beginning as well, I kind of got that. When you look at the history of sightings and experiences, there are so many commonalities. And when you talk about, it's kind of exciting, because yes, it happened way back when, but when people are experiencing these things now, it's just as exciting, and there's so many commonalities, and you think, wow, like this is really incredible, because it's that atmospheric quality of that whole experience that kind of draws you right in.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And like I said before, man, I highly recommend anybody that loves what they're hearing today, what they're reading, that it's today. Start going backwards, and your mind's going to get completely blown, and it's gonna change your life, because because there's so much that it's funny to say it like this. There's so much, if you go back and you read, that's going to answer questions that you might have today. But as we know, in these fields, the second you get an answer on something, that answer brings up 10 more questions. So,
and then it really stirs the fascination, and then you're going all in.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cody. It's UAPS. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think somebody had brought up a question. I'm going to paraphrase the question. Let me actually just see if I can find it. But it was basically asking, what if we found out that, there was definitive proof about, some of these creatures? Do you think that this would? Oh, here it is. I think this was actually Cody again as well, but it was through Facebook. Do you think that things like Sasquatch, UFOs, and Bigfoot would lose its allure if discovered to be real?
I think after a while, yeah. I think it would become so the mystery of it. I think I think everybody kind of, no matter what age you are, still kind of have that kid in you. That loves that mystery and that excitement of it. I think to a degree it absolutely would. For some, I mean, in one way it would, because we'd be like, okay, we know they exist now. But I think what could help and also take it to the next level is now actually learning about it and actually learning truths, learning more about it. I mean, if we found out, that, Sasquatch, 100% existed, it was flesh and blood, I think it would be cool. I think it would eventually kind of maybe die off. But as far as like extraterrestrial, I think that would just go on and on and on, because if it's extraterrestrial, it's coming from another planet. Well, darn well, if they're coming from one planet with all these other planets out there, there's others on other planets, and I think that could kind of continue to go on, because it would be so different. And as far as spirits and ghosts, I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't believe to a degree. I think that one might be a little bit harder, to be able to prove. But I think, as we know, at least now we know that unidentified flying objects, do exist. They haven't actually come out, from what I understand, and said that, it's extraterrestrial. But I think something extraterrestrial, I think would really would just continue to go on and on. I'm not saying like Sasquatch would get boring. I guess in a kind of a way I am. But I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know. You meet somebody new. There's you exchange stories, this and that. And then after a while, you're friends. It's just like you still love each other, but it's just not. It's just not.
It would be more accepting.
Exactly. Yeah. That's perfect. I'm glad you said that, because I would have just kept going in circles trying to come up with that. Just,
I think also too, though, with something like that. I mean, I'm going to be honest. If I saw that creature that you're talking about, Linda, I'm just staying in my house for like the next, I don't care however long, unless I'm walking down the street with like a great big shotgun or something like that. But because that's not something I particularly want to walk into. But yeah, I think to some degree it would not only it would lose the allure, but I think it would really endanger them. I mean, to some degree, I don't know exactly how to say it. I don't know if it's them or us. There's still that element of safety, simply because of the fact that there are a lot of disbelievers, right? So, a lot of people hear about Bigfoot. They're not running off into the jungle or into the forest with like guns and, but I mean, we put into the story of Frankenstein, for example. That's exactly what would happen if they had definitive proof that Bigfoot existed. You're going to end up with, pitchfork vigilante ism that's going to go on, and it's going to turn into a big game hunt, right?
Well, I don't know. Have you ever seen the show Mountain Monsters? I mean, honestly, they go into the forest with guns and set traps for things like the snallygaster and all that. Have you ever seen that show?
No.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. There's somewhere
the Ames team
backwoods somewhere in Virginia or something. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, and they'll tell you too. I mean, because with every TV. I mean, I've got a lot of friends, that have done a lot of TV. I mean, I've done a very little bit, but they'll tell you that yes, there are some. It's not totally scripted, but there's certain things that you do follow, and but the Ames team, they'll tell you, it's entertainment. That's what they'll tell you, because every time they're out, they come across something, they come across what they're looking for.
Well, it's like any ghost hunting show on TV, right?
Yeah.
There's always a something.
I think if they ever discovered ghosts, or they found a scientific way of proving how to get for a ghost, how a ghost manifests and stuff like that, I think the question would shift from how to why. Rather, that would be the question that we'll be continually asking. And I think, if we did find ghost was finally proven and stuff like that, and a lot of people would pack their bags up, because it would be it's the thrill of the chase, and that's what we do it for. It's
exactly
it's like catching that big fish, and regardlessly whether you're looking for Sasquatch, whether you're looking for a ghost, whether you're looking for a little goblin at the end of the garden, it's the same premise as well. You're just gonna you wait and wait and wait, and some people wait their whole lives, and but it's the thrill of the chase, I guess, more than anything else. So another question. So if I want to go Sasquatch hunting tomorrow, what would your advice be to me about equipment, and how would I? You've already gone through about how I would conduct myself and stuff like that, but what would you give your advice to a newbie that would want to pursue this?
Sure. I'd start right out, and this is one of the reasons I joined the group that I'm with. 100% safety. One of the reasons I joined the group that I'm with is I know like one of my weak areas would be wilderness survival. I mean, if I fall and I twist my ankle in the woods, I'm dead. You know, that's it. I'm just gonna lay there and let life take me. But the gentleman that leads the group that I'm with, he's like I said, Gary. He's a survivalist. He's the guy that, you know, they're going to send out if somebody disappears, and he's going to come back with them plus Jimmy Hoffa over his shoulder. I mean, it's just, you know, so anybody that's just getting into it or they're new, don't just say, hey, this is cool, you know, with you and your friends. Come up with a name for your team, make up t-shirts, and then go out in the woods.
Yeah.
Make sure you are going out with somebody that understands the woods, understands what they need to do when they're in the woods, what should happen if there is an emergency. Somebody who knows what you need to bring, and if something happens, what you need to do. Don't just, you know, watch the TV show and go, okay, well, this is easy, and go out and do that. The woods are dangerous. And I'm not talking about, you know, coming across a bear. I'm talking about you're also coming across the most scariest thing in the woods, which is another human being, because you don't know what their intentions are and what they are. So make sure you're fully prepared, you know, to survive if something happens, and two, to be able to defend yourself if you have to, for any reason. So definitely just, you know, safety first. Make sure that somebody on your team is well versed in the woods and can just make sure that they keep you safe and that you guys come out. Because, you know, we say this, even though, you know, we've got Gary and other people, you know, on the team that are very well versed in the woods. When we go in the woods, we don't know how we're going to come out. We absolutely don't. We know how we hope we're coming out. Because the woods are very, I mean, you know, the weather can change in a second. There's so many different things that can happen. And, you know, with Gary doing both, you know, paranormal as well as cryptids, you know, he'll tell you, you know, it's as scary as it is maybe sitting in a house looking for ghosts. A lot of the time it's a lot safer because you're in a climate controlled environment. So, please, just safety, just 100% safety, because this is real life, and anything can happen.
If anyone's ever seen the movie Backcountry, that right there be the reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Or Deliverance.
Yeah, or the Deliverance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch out for the banjos.
And if you are new and you're getting into it, you know, reach out to the group that I'm with. It's the New York Bigfoot Society. Gary, pretty much just he runs the site. So he'll be the one to like answer questions, and he'll be able to let you guys know, you know, what you should bring, what you should do, what you should not do. And you know, watch some of his videos too, because right now the New York Bigfoot Society has a podcast, and we take a break from the spring all the way to the fall, because that's kind of our area our time of the year when we're out researching. But he's doing another segment right now, radio show with little videos called New York Trails. And so it's like New York Trails or something. And he's talking about hiking safety. He's talking about things to be safe in the woods. So again, this is somebody who just he knows his stuff. He'll hike out, you know, 6-7 miles out in the middle of the woods just to turn around and come back. No trails. So he's just when he says something, it's literally gold. So if you're new getting into this, just look up the New York Bigfoot Society. Follow us on Facebook, and just message us and any of your questions, and Gary will be happy to answer them, because he doesn't want to have to go out and find you.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time. Okay, well, I think that's it for this week. Okay, so thanks for tuning in, guys, and thanks again, Kenny. Thank you, Lynda. Thank you, Kathy, this week, and tune in again next week, guys.
Take care.
Thanks,
you.